All right, what's up, guys? We're back for another chit chat, but this time we have Sarah on our team who leads the sports influencer section of the business. So, Sarah, it's great to have you. I'm excited to talk more about this NCAA madness that's going on right now. But give us just your quick background in sports marketing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jess. So I started as a D1 athlete in high school, and then in college, I got into the sports broadcasting side just locally. And that kind of led me to working for the Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Cleveland Browns on their promo and game day entertainment teams. And then my first year out of college, I was full time at the Cleveland Indians. And then that led me to a job at the Padres, which led me to a job more so on the sports agent side and getting, athletes partnerships and deals. So I've kind of shifted from the game day side to really athlete marketing, which is really interesting. So I'm really excited to talk about this NCAA stuff going on. There's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunity here.
And it's great timing too, because I think when we hired you, you said the thing that you wanted to bring to the social standard was sports marketing. It's just opened everything up for you here, which is really cool. So give me the lowdown on what you see here kind of happening, what's interesting to you. And I think our audience too, for those of us who haven't been D1 athletes, they don't necessarily know what sort of rules are already in place at these schools for athletes when it comes to social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has definitely been a hot topic for a long time in the sports world. We all know the story of these big time high school football players or basketball players or what have you. They get full rides to huge, huge colleges like Ohio State, Miami, Alabama. And, they get a free ride to college and they're the name and the face of the school and the team and sometimes even the whole community, and they get these huge deals after college, right? But during college, they really, the team kind of owns you, so to speak. Like they control your school schedule, your training schedule, your eating schedule, all of the things. And it's been a topic of conversation for a long time as players start to get noticed by these big NFL teams. And I think that with the NCAA changing their rules to allowing the name, image, and likeness of the players, and being able to monetize on that is huge. I think it'll be messy in the beginning, because there are a lot of social media guidelines behind a lot of different teams. Every team and every school is different. But I know if you are a D1 athlete, you are a brand ambassador for the college, right? So I think there's a lot to discuss there. And then I think between, communities and bigger corporations kind of leeching on to these athletes that have so much potential, and maybe they have a small following now, but they can really kind of hang on to these guys and grab them young and early, and then they
Mhm.
just explode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important point. So, talking a little bit about some of the social media like guidelines and rules that these athletes have. So, like, give us an example of like what a few popular guidelines are.
Sure. So, I mean, I know for like sororities and fraternities, it's pretty standard across the board that they have to, when they become a part of Greek life, they sign contracts, and athletes do the same. And there are strict social media guidelines of, your image and how you're portraying yourself as a member of these communities online. So, for example, you can't be posting Instagram stories at a frat party, underage drinking, smoking, whatever it is. And athletes they do the same thing. There's a lot of teams that have set guidelines, and even if they're, one topic of conversation is if they're a Christian school or if they're a
Mhm.
non-drinking school, which is sometimes big football schools are like that,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
so like I said, I think every team and every school is different, but I think there are a lot of rules around how you are portraying your image as a member of a team on social media and making sure that it is, respectful, and you're really showing that you are a brand ambassador for that team. Because while you're in college, especially if you're on a full ride, that is your job, right? And I think everyone kind of agrees with that. So I'm
Definitely.
interested to see if any of that kind of changes with endorsements and marketing deals.
It will be interesting, right? I mean, I think for a lot of brands, the social media guidelines that are already in place are really great, right? Because it already sort of has educated or trained these athletes on how to be brand safe.
Mhm.
Right. So that's a huge thing, because I think when you consider college athletes, college is there's a big social component to college. There are a lot of things that people do, and it's a time of testing and being adventurous and figuring things out, and that's not always brand safe. right?
Right.
But I think it'll be interesting to see because cannabis, right? For example, how is that market going to play out here? How is it going to work if Budweiser, who is a huge traditional sports sponsor, like,
Exactly.
can they play in this market? How can they play in this
Exactly.
market, right? So it's going to be, I think that side of things will absolutely be super interesting. But I actually think that the rules, even though they are different everywhere, I think will be pretty easy for brands to navigate. And obviously, you can partner with somebody like us who already knows them, has an expert on their staff like you that can
Absolutely.
bring them up to speed pretty quickly. Now, when it comes to some of this local stuff, like, talk to me a little bit more about this, because local has been something that influencer marketing has really not been able to touch really well. But
Mhm.
you, in our previous conversations, have brought up a lot of really good points about how this actually really expands the local market.
Absolutely. So, I mean, when you think of the Big Ten schools that, there's traditional colleges that people are most familiar with their sports, it's Ohio State, Columbus, Ohio, it's Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. These are small communities, small towns that thrive off their football and basketball teams. And, I'm from Cleveland, right? So I'm already from a big sports town. We have the
Mm-hmm.
Browns, Indians, and Cavs, and that's our whole world. And we have Baker Mayfield all over the billboards on, our Shoreway, and they're everything, but I came to the realization that it's the same way for these colleges, and especially in the South, for like Louisiana, Alabama,
Absolutely.
that is their whole world. I mean, the babies are born and they are given a football, right? Like, I mean, really, it's, and so I think that these local mom and pop shops, and, I think they have a lot of opportunity to really expand on these athletes because they are their whole world, and they really, they're the celebrities of the town, right? One of the articles I saw this morning was that there's a gym in Miami that's giving all of the Miami football players a $500 a month. I don't know if it's a stipend or if it's a contract influencer
Credit.
deal,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, credit to the gym. But that's huge for a college
Yeah.
student. That's absolutely huge, whether you have a full ride or not. Just that $500 a month, and I am sure it's phenomenal for the gym as well. These young kids that are in Miami are gonna be like, oh, sweet, the Miami football team's going to that gym. I'm going too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I think the opportunities for these smaller communities and smaller markets are huge. I mean, we're not talking about just Gatorade or Nike. We're talking about mom and pop shops, that have a lot of potential. And I think it's great for the athletes too, because if they don't have a big following, this is something that's a win-win.
Yeah, they can capitalize on their sort of celebrity status within local places. And it's great, right? If you're a college kid and you get to go out and you eat free pizza every single time you want at, whatever restaurant, or
Right.
you get to go to the gym here for free, like, those are a lot of ways to kind of plus up your life and your lifestyle. And I think we've seen that happen a lot on Instagram, right? As people, influencers, people, whatever, they like to show an aspirational view of
Mhm.
their life and not necessarily what it's really about. And I
Mhm.
think celebrities in sports are absolutely the same way, right?
For sure.
So it
Yeah.
definitely gives them some benefits there. And I would say, it's, who doesn't want like free pizza, a great
Yeah.
place to work out? Like, I mean, I think that all makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I can even see like I think smaller brands across the board make a lot of sense here, right? I think historically, when people have come to us that are very localized, it's hard for us to say, hey, here's an influencer with, 300,000 followers, but, not all of them are going to be in your town. Right now,
Right.
you've got all these people who are really legitimately going to be in that area, that surrounding area, and you don't have to rely just on paid media. Now you can
Mhm.
actually participate in influencer marketing. I think that's huge. It's a point that I probably didn't fully understand until our conversation,
Yeah, that's a really
the
good
other day.
point, because there is a piece of it that seems a little bit more wholesome and organic,
Hmm.
because people are living and breathing their sport in their town,
Yep.
when you're a D1 athlete, like I said earlier, I really do think it's like you are not signing your life away, but you're kind of agreeing that for the next 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
I'm really going to dedicate my life to this team and this sport, which I think is fabulous. And I think it also opens the door for, only 2 to 5% of these athletes go pro after college.
Hmm.
So the other, 95%, now they have these opportunities with these brands, and maybe they find a business or, something they really, really like or really enjoy, and they can, expand on that. So I
Oh,
just think,
absolutely.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think, and too, the other thing is, you think about that, it's like, well, if they're really a local celebrity and their audience is truly localized in that general area, and they build a following around that, they already have relationships in the community, and they leave, let's say they don't go pro. well, they could open up a business in that local community very easily, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's a huge win for those guys too. And I think a lot about, automotive, because automotive or even anything that is, a larger corporate structure, but really is focused on local individual markets, right? So
Mhm.
we do a ton of work within the automotive sector, but nationwide. This to me opens up a lot of really cool activations that you can do with individual dealers, right? And the same would go for like, Hyatt, for example, who's been a client of ours in the past. They work with localized chains as well. You could work with those local chains to pump those up. And those are marketing dollars that make a lot of sense specifically for that area. Um, wow. Yeah. A lot of possibilities here for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And I think it's such a great conversation because it really is like the opportunities are endless. And um I think this is going to be a revolving door of how, we work in terms of influencer marketing and what we see on social specifically. I mean, you and I know we do this every day, but TikTok is just now blowing up,
Yep.
And I think there's so much opportunity for these athletes because now they have multiple platforms to work off of.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's definitely true. And you can build it however you want to build it. So I think the video, though, seems to be the only language that most people want to speak. So I think that the live streams, the stories, the TikTok videos, I think that's all going to be really, really great. And it's so much easier for them to create that content, which sort of brings me to another point and that, we've discussed a little bit about how, like, the differences that we've seen so far in female athlete content versus male athlete content, right? You've got a lot of these female athletes have really figured out how to be influencers almost irregardless of their athletic status. And it's pretty impressive, right? Because I think that's what really has allowed them to skyrocket in terms of awareness, right? It sets them up for huge deals, right? With the nationwide dealers, they could be Lululemon, they could be Gymshark, they could be Fiat Chrysler, they can do all of these things, right? And then with the males, we see honestly just smaller followings across the board. You're going to have the people who shoot up every once in a while and have big followings, but they are a lot smaller in following and their content is a little bit less consistent. And it does seem to be focused majority on the actual act of sports.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think girls have, or, females have a better understanding of how to strategically place their image and their profile to really expand on, multiple categories because as sad as it is to say, the chances of females going pro in sports is just smaller. It just is, right?
Okay.
And I think for the males, I think it's so much easier and so much more the norm to just show, oh, I'm working out or, I'm playing sports, but they don't really know or care, right, about like the images necessarily, unless they're taught. And then,
Sure.
but now I think now that they're like, oh, wait, I can make money off this. I think it's really going to be like, okay, I need someone to teach me social media strategies. Like, what do I need to do? I think that, anyone can learn it, right? Anyone can
Sure.
really expand on their image. But I think for whatever reason, girls are really capitalizing on this and really trying to get with as many brands as they know. I know I mentioned in our conversation yesterday, Ashlyn Harris, who's a female
Yes.
soccer player based in Florida. She's just incredible. I love her Instagram. I really think she is a great brand ambassador for everyone that she's signed with, and she just really kills it. And her content is amazing. It's just really high quality.
Yeah. And she's very lifestyle oriented, right? It gives you kind of this behind the scenes access to someone who's already a celebrity status. And I think that's what people really show up for. Right.
Mhm.
And even I know years ago, we ran activations for L'Oreal with what they were calling cheerlebrities.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if this is like a thing still, but they were cheerleaders who had huge followings. And at the time, I mean, this was back when it was a big deal to have 2-3 million followers on Instagram, and these ladies would have 500,000, 800,000 followers on Instagram, no problem. And they had nailed it in terms of figuring out the brand, the lifestyle component, everything. And I actually looked up a few of them to see, and they've continued their success. It's almost like their path was more into modeling, acting,
Mhm.
entertainment, and they're great now. They're on TikTok. They're doing huge things there. So it's interesting to see if the um, male athletes will take a cue from the female athletes on this part, or if they're just going to kind of do their own thing and go a little bit more like um, Tom Brady style, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think we are slowly but surely moving into, I'm seeing a lot more apparel and things like that with
Mm,
more of the professional athletes. but yeah, and also there, it just seems that there's more opportunity on the female side because you got, you have makeup, hair,
True.
clothes, like all the accessories, there's just more. So, but I agree with you. I do think that a lot of female athletes in college will go down the route of, fitness and beauty and more of something that they're going to do anyways, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
post college, pre college. So, yeah.
And it is interesting that you mentioned sort of the apparel lines, which is a natural extension, right? Fitness, working out, all that sort of stuff. But
Mhm,
Barstool Sports
mhm.
just made an announcement the other day about their sort of segue into NCAA athletes. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I think they created the Instagram either the day of or the day after that the NCAA, I'm not kidding you. I
Yeah,
looked it up.
they were on it. They were on
It
it.
was like the next day that the NCAA announced the name, image, and likeness deals. But it's called Barstool Athletics, and they are signing athletes from all over the country, males, females, young, seniors, freshmen, whatever, as kind of brand ambassadors. And, Jess, you and I looked at their Instagrams and we're like,
Hmm.
well, everyone's not huge. I mean, they have a decent following and they're young,
Yep.
and good profiles, but not anyone, major. They aren't the Joe Burrows or the Trevor Lawrences of college.
Right.
So I think Barstool is, kind of grabbing these kids young and early. And
Hmm.
if they don't go pro, they can be on a Barstool podcast. They can show Barstool apparel. They can, Barstool's obviously massive. There's so many windows, there's so many opportunities. But I think Barstool's kind of saying, like, yeah, we've been for the athletes since day one, and we're going to snag these kids young and early. And they're all about, the athlete longevity. And I think that's awesome. And I love that they're signing females. I think that's great.
Hmm. Yeah, and they are smaller for sure. But I mean, who knows? To your point, I think too, a lot of athletes may not have put a tremendous amount of focus on social media because it's not been profitable for them,
Mhm.
right? But I bet you anything, the next 1 to 2 years, social profiles will absolutely skyrocket. And I think Barstool is smart to do that. They've always done very smart ventures into this. And I think, they're looking at doing the apparel or the swag or the merch for a lot of these athletes if they want to do their own thing. And I know another sort of motivational tactic, I would say, for them to sign with them is they say, hey, and come party with us, come party with Barstool Sports. But I think
Right.
that Barstool could actually give them a platform, right? Like a bigger platform to do a lot of different things. So it'll
I
be
agree.
interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know they have a ton of podcasts, but they've had athletes on their podcast as hosts for years. So I really hope that they take advantage of that with these younger kids and especially the females. I think it's great that they're being so inclusive.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the equation too, right? I think especially with it was a big reason why NCAA kind of held everything very close to the chest. Is they're saying, hey, the money for football also goes to swimming and soccer and tennis and all these other sports that we need to kind of pump up. But
Mhm.
I really think that there's a lot of opportunity, even for big brands in some of those small sports, to again create relationships early, but also to do other things like, Speedo could go and sponsor a whole bunch of really cool, awesome things for the male and female swim and diving teams, right? They could
Yeah.
they could now probably sponsor the pool. Like there's a whole bunch of cool stuff that they could do just to ingrain them with that lifestyle and that particular community.
Oh, exactly. I think it's huge. I mean, yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, there's all these sports that are unfortunately just not televised or not as popular, and that's okay. I mean, you have softball, lacrosse, water polo. I
Yep.
think the opportunities for these brands are endless. And I also think it's going to get kids starting in sports younger, earlier. Since COVID, we've had kind of this lag of people watching live sports and being able to play in team settings. And I hope that these younger kids with these opportunities will be able to kind of change that pace.
Oh yeah, and it's like a day in the life of too, right? YouTube actually has a lot of videos where these influencers will go around and tour campus, or they go to Harvard and they say, hey, here's what a day in the life of a Harvard student is like, and people are using that as a means to understand what it's like to really be a part of that community. I could
Mhm.
absolutely see the same thing happening with sports.
Oh, me too. I would love that.
Yeah. I mean, but it's really interesting, right? Everyone kind of wants to go through, like, live the life of a college athlete. It's interesting. It's not something that most people get a tremendous amount of exposure to.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I mean, content is king. Behind the scenes content is king, especially with sports.
Yeah. And you know what? And at the end of the day, it is a lot, it's hard work. And I do think that, I think these athletes deserve it. I really do. Like I said, I've said before, I'm an athlete advocate, and I really do think that, they work their butts off and they are working 2 days, and they really dedicate their lives to these teams. And, like I said, I just think it's great. I'm excited to see what happens.
I agree. Me too. Cool.